Hey, you guys. I want to talk about. Wait a second. I want to talk about this piece of hair back here. You know what? I'm getting my hair cut this evening for the first time since it all fell out and I shaved it off a year ago. And it's just about time I had something going on besides this. I try to work with it, but whatever. So I have a question that I was asked, and I want to share it with you because I have a feeling that the person who asked me this question is not the only one. She says this: what do you do when a friend that you thought you could trust gets really close with your abuser? So let me expound a little bit. In this particular case study, the friend actually works in the mental health field and claims to be an authority on mental health situations. And so she's now super good friends with this woman's abuser and his new girlfriend. And she's helping them withhold information from her concerning her children, concerning their plans. She added them publicly as friends on her social media. And while claiming to be in the survivors' tribe, and it feels so defeating and disbelieved, and she feels so unseen, and now she feels like she needs to put up boundaries, but what kind of boundaries? So raise your hand if you've ever been in a similar situation where you wondered, what do I do now? Let me tell you what some of the people said. I have permission to use this. I see Christine saying, my sister was and still is friends and connected with my abusive ex-husband. You know what? You are not alone. That is absolutely devastating, and it happens far too often. I think that when family members who seem like they should know better, it's a whole different level of betrayal when they decide to support the person who's caused you great harm. It's really, really devastating. So here's some answers that some other women gave. I've experienced it too with my close friends. I ended up having to cut all ties and blocking on social media. I've experienced it too. I found out during and after my divorce, friends that I had trusted and confided in were feeding information to my ex. I chose not to react, but I accepted that this friendship has changed and my boundaries were strengthened. Another woman says, I had a friend. Notice I said had a friend like that. Another one says, I unfriended my own relatives because even though I had thought they totally had my back, but they remained Facebook friends and connected on social media with the person who had done me so much harm with my ex. So she says, I don't think she meant harm, and she only wanted to see some of the photos he posted, but she blocked and unfriended anyway. This is one strategy. You could say, oh, you like my shirt, huh? Thanks, Lisa. You know what? I figured this was an appropriate t-shirt for this kind of conversation, even though it's not directly relevant, but her gumption, yeah, love Rosa Parks and those like her. So anyway, another woman says that I had noticed a friend liking posts and on my ex's page, and that it sounded really trivial, but her friendship and its support had meant a lot, and that I noticed later that we're no longer social media friends. So I guess the mutual friend had cut her off, and so whenever she would meet up with us, she would just throw out like fake juicy tidbits just so that it could get back to her ex, because she knew who was leaking the information. And then when the fake information came back around, she knew exactly who had shared it. I'm not saying that's what I'm telling you to do. I just kind of had to chuckle at the amusement of that. So here is, let me just see the comments here for a second. Someone didn't have a kind word to say about my ex while we were married, but now that we've been divorced due to 22 years of abuse, she's suddenly his best friend. I've cut all ties. I had a similar situation happen. Someone who had never, ever liked someone, the person who hurt me a lot. And then after the fact, and after a lot of things came out that actually were proof and evidence, they flipped sides and decided they wanted to be best friends on the other side. So what do? I think that happens a lot. I think that, I'm in the middle of that now. Amanda says, people who played as informants and lived the facade of true deep care. I am so sorry. That is absolutely devastating. It's so devastating. So here are some things that you can do. So let's say you found out someone you've trusted, someone, whether it's a relative or a friend or a colleague, someone you've trusted has decided that they are either going to be steadfastly neutral, which means that they're taking the other side because they're not standing up against justice. That's what that means. Silence in the face of injustice is alliance with the abuser, period. If they are actively, knowingly supporting the person who has provably caused you harm, they are not your friend. I don't care if they're related to you. I don't care if they're your sister. I don't care if they're your new spouse. I don't care if they're your auntie or grandma or your best girlfriend. If they cannot see through it and they are allowing themselves to be manipulated and used, or they are knowingly siding with the person who has caused harm in a pattern of behavior, then they are not your friend. And you may deal with an intense sense of loyalty where you're like, but I've known them forever. How can I take action against them? Because this is like, they've been my friends forever. So let's talk about the sunk cost fallacy. Yes, Charity, silence is alliance. So if they are being silent in the face of abusive behavior patterns, if they are trying to say, I'm choosing to be neutral, I just love you both. No, they do not love you both because they are not standing up against the patterns of behavior that are causing harm. And that's not just unloving to you as the survivor, that is also unloving to the other person as the abuser because it is not holding them accountable, which means they are being allowed to continue socially accepted in their patterns of causing harm, which isn't good for their character, right? So it's allowing them to continue causing harm with impunity, without social pushback, because of falsely claimed neutrality. When if the social group said, hey, this is unacceptable behavior, we love you enough to hold you accountable. So you can either choose to change or you can choose to exit our social group. If you are not going to reflect Jesus, if you are not going to use your power to protect, if you are going to use your power to exploit someone who is more vulnerable than you, if you are going to use your power to work against the goodness of God, then you are not welcome in our social group. That's not unloving, that is loving. In fact, the Apostle Paul says that when you find someone who is abusive and divisive and deceitful, you should cut them off and you should not even sit down to eat with them, because you should treat them as someone who is an outsider, as a pagan. That means someone who needs to be won for Christ but is not on the inside of your inner circle with trust, period. So it's just completely, biblically, it is unacceptable to side with the perpetrator of harm. Now, sometimes it is entirely possible that someone has been manipulated unknowingly by the abuser. They've been triangulated. They've been given a story that seems super believable. And so as they are trying to sort it out, they may not have evil intentions or malice, but they may be being told a lot of falsehoods. In your weighing the risks, which is step 1, it's important to seek to assess if this person is the flying monkey, the one in between, the one who's trying to stay neutral, the one who seems to be aligning with your abuser, if they are being deceived and willing to be educated, or if they are determined to align with the abuser through their silence, that alliance, silence and alliance, or if they are knowingly and intentionally siding with the person who is causing you and your children harm. Now, so that's step 1. Step 1, weigh the risks. Weigh the risks for you and your children. This means not just physical risks, but weigh the risks of the stress on your mind and body and heart as you feel unsafe around a person. Is that person the third party who's being triangulated or who is aligned with your abuser? Not the abuser, but the middle person. Is that friend someone that you can interact with safely that doesn't add to your sense of trauma and hypervigilance? If they are not, distance is necessary. We'll talk about what that distance means in a second. So first, weigh the risks involved. Does it range from minor nuisance to full-on endangerment? Now, if you're in an active court case and someone is passing private information about you or your children, or like HIPAA protected information to your abuser, guess what? That is actual endangerment. That is not just a minor nuisance. If it's some busybody at church and they're just passing on stuff they've heard and it's hurtful, but it's not actually endangerment, you might handle it differently. So you need to take into consideration the closeness of this person, the level of access they have to information, and the level of potential that they have to cause endangerment or harm to you and your children, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. So that's step 1. Step 2, focus on safety. What do you and your kids need in order to feel that you are safe? Because honestly, if you're going through all of this, you don't need more antagonism. You don't need more people on top of the anguish that you are already experiencing. You don't need to invite flying monkeys into your home so that they can turn around, and then you're like, before they turn around and pass on the information, that you're like mentally filtering everything that I've said. Okay, did I say this wrong? Did I say that wrong? Could that be twisted? What if they pass this on? What way will that be taken? Just stop. Just don't go there. If you can't trust them, the relationship is not a healthy one for now. Now, there may come a time later where the relationship can be renewed and restored and nobody's in danger. That's fine. You can cross that bridge when you get there. This is not necessarily like a permanent death, or it might be, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to think of it as like, wow, I've killed this relationship. But just for now, for this season, this is not safe. This is not helping me heal. This is not adding to my children's well-being. So this relationship needs distance. Step 3, take action without shaming yourself to do what is best for safety. Now, that can look different depending on the situation. You may have to simply limit the information. For example, you go to church. Church is not a safe place, but you don't have another place to go right now. You have reasons you're continuing to go there, but there are people who are just like a sieve. They're just filtering information straight on through to the person who's causing you harm. And so you just don't tell them anything about your private life. Hold your head high, stay poised, stay strong, and don't confide. Or limiting information may mean completely cutting them off of all your social media. You know what? Newsflash. Nobody has a right to be on your social media. Who knew? Just because you've invested 5 years or 25 years of past history doesn't mean they have a right to be on your social media and have all your posts. Shocking, right? They don't have a right to that. The sunk cost fallacy that I mentioned earlier is where we end up not doing the healing thing, not doing the right thing, simply because we've invested a lot of time up to this point and I'm not a quitter, so I will not cut it off. Don't fall into that. Do what's healthy for you now. So, first, limit your information. 2, sometimes you may, and I would consider this prayerfully and with the involvement of the Holy Spirit and maybe some mentors, you may find it helpful to actually confront the person. That's often also unwise. But here's a situation where it might be wise. If you believe that the person is operating on a very limited set of false or skewed facts, and that they have a good conscience and they are a person who dearly wants to do what is right, then you might choose to say, hey, did you know about XYZ also? And they might be horrified that they have continued to perpetrate harm or that they have been used by someone who is lying to them and manipulating them. In that case, you might be able to restore the relationship and the safety. I don't think that's the majority of the time, but it can happen, and you do want to consider that. But if it's unsafe and unwise to confront them, or it's unsafe and unwise to confront them right now, you might say, you know what, when I'm in a more stable place, when things are not so rocky, when things are not so upside down, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I will talk to them then. In the meantime, I'm going to do what is best for safety. And then you decide what is best for safety. Do you just distance, or do you go full on, purge all your friends' friends, block, ban, and make your social media circle a place where you actually feel safe instead of feeling obligated to letting other people have a window into your life who really haven't earned the right to be there. They don't need to be looking through your windows. They need to stay off the lawn. So you put up a fence, and that's called a healthy boundary. Now, here's something that just kind of helps along with that. If you go and you make posts on social media and you kind of flounce out of the digital room with a toss of your hair and a swing of your cape, and you make a big deal about how you are cutting off all the unsafe people, it's going to make you look bitter and vengeful. And that's really not the direction we want to go, is it? Because we want healing. We want to be focused on what is best. We want to be focused on restoration of our own hearts with Christ and the Holy Spirit. We want to be embracing the hard steps without letting it turn us into rigid, bitter, brittle, angry people. And by angry, I don't mean healthy outrage. I mean, that soul-rotting kind of anger. So if you decide to purge and block and ban and distance in this way, the best way to do it is quietly. Just do it and say nothing. Let the chips fall where they may. And if anyone asks questions, it's perfectly okay to just say, you know what? I just decided that I needed some quieter life. I just needed to limit the input, the stimuli. And so, you know what? You can also go back and you can limit all your past posts on your Facebook page to private, to friends only. And then all of a sudden, you've regained a sense of personal space and personal privacy in a healthy way. And all the people who pitch a royal hissy fit about not having access to all your private information, they probably weren't using it for your best good anyway. So, a couple of case studies. Here's some hypothetical ways that could fit. Let's just say you have a friend who you've really trusted. You've shared a lot with them. Maybe they're not like your best friend, but you've shared a lot. And then you hear your ex bragging that they have a back door to information and you hear them quote things that you have shared with that friend, guess what? You have all the proof you need right there. It's time to remove that friend from access to your private information. Let's say that you have a relative who has seemed to be super supportive and in your corner. Maybe they were one of those who hated your abuser, couldn't stand them the whole time you were with them. And then all of a sudden you find out, guess what? They're like all besties now. They're passing information about you. They're passing information about your kids. They're perpetuating your abuser's lies and their false narrative. They're taking a stand against justice. And they're doing it in a way that shows that they are petty and shallow and vindictive, because honestly, they didn't even like your abuser back when your abuser was in your life. They're just doing it now just to hurt you. So guess what? That person is no longer a friend to you. And if they were a relative, then you can pray for them. You can ask God to bring them to a point of understanding and recognition and to break their hearts and fill them with the Holy Spirit. But you can do that from behind the other side of the social media wall. They don't have a right to know anything about your life. So in all of this, it boils down to you have two choices. You can confront the conduit of information, the flying monkey, the person who is causing harm on behalf of your abuser. And you can share why it hurts and endangers you. And then based on their reaction, you can decide what to do next. Were they horrified and genuinely appalled at how they had played a part in perpetuating harm? Or, you know what? You can also just inform them that you are no longer able to pursue a relationship with them because they have made their choice. Or, so 1, you can confront them. 2, you can inform them. 3, you can just silently cut out the cancer from your life. A cancer pun. Imagine that. Hey, you know what? Tonight I'm getting my hair cut for the first time since it started growing in after I lost all my hair. That's kind of a big deal to me. I know it doesn't make any difference to anyone else, but it's a big deal to me. So yeah, you can just silently cut the cancer out of your life and block everybody, be more discreet with your information, and make sure you're only sharing with people that actually understand trauma and that actually are interested in your best good. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. This went on a little longer than I intended. I'm going to try to turn it into a blog post so you can share it. But in the meantime, share the heck out of this video. Pass it on to someone else. Make sure that other people get this information. Oh, Lisa says, I now openly tell flying monkeys they're supporting my abuser, and their reaction is enough information to go from there. Yes. That is one way to do it. If you've got the gumption for that and you are in a stable enough emotional place, go for it. Just be like, hey, you know what? You are perpetuating lies and you are supporting someone who actively causes harm. So if you're cool with that, then that means we view life very differently. And thank you. Bye. You can do that if you've got the personality for that. It's not the right thing for everybody. And if you're in an emotionally unstable place, probably not the best thing to try to force yourself to do. But if you can do it with poise and with gentleness and kindness and firmness and still be praying for their souls, then go for it. All right. Tell me what you think. Share this with somebody, and happy Easter, everybody.